SpongeBob, I'm coming for you. So, as promised, today I will be talking about Django Unchained. Django Unchained. And I wrote notes. I have trusty old laptop here, and I'm just gonna kinda type in. That's the wrong password. Man, I suck at this. All right, and I'm just gonna talk about my thoughts on the film. So let's do this. So for those of you who have not seen Django Untangled, I don't know why I keep calling it that. Am I stupid? Django Unchained. I'm just gonna say what I wrote here. Basically, if you haven't seen it, you should see it. But it's a 2012 film by it's a Quentin Tarantino film, and it's about an African American ex-slave 2 years before the Civil War, named Django. I say ex-slave. Technically he's still a slave, but he's not really a slave anymore because he gets freed at the very beginning of the movie. By a German dentist turned bounty hunter, and together they basically team up to hunt down the most wanteds of the South, and then eventually they head to a particularly infamous plantation in order to rescue Django's wife. And it's a great time. It's a good movie. Really, I got some things I'd like to say here. I'm just going to kind of talk about, again, as the usual, I'm just going to kind of talk about whatever it is was to my interest, because this movie's been out a while, and I'm sure a lot of people have talked about it, so I'm not going to try to, like, explain the plot or anything like that to you, more than what I've already done. You really should just watch the movie. But hopefully by the end of this, I can give you some insight as to why I like this movie and why you should watch it. It's a Quentin Tarantino film, so there's a lot of death in this movie. There's a lot of blood, but they're really fun kills. There's not a lot. There's a lot of like when you watch movies, there are like gruesome kills, there are sad kills, and then there are fun kills. And there's a mix of those in here. There's a mix of those in this movie. But the relationship between the two leads, I don't remember the names of the actors. Well, I know Jamie Foxx plays Django. I don't remember the name of the German. I do know it's the same guy who plays. I almost said Hans Gruber. Who plays in that other movie that I haven't watched with the Hateful Eight. It's not the Hateful Eight. Oh man, this is gonna be a long video. Anyway, both great actors. Watching their relationship unfold, very satisfying, very fun to watch. Really enjoyed that. The kills are just like, they're so juicy, they're so well done, and there's this extra layer of satisfaction that comes from watching asshole racist people get what they deserve. And it's done very well. It never feels like it's just written very well. So like every kill that ever happens feels like it's deserved, feels like it's been built up in order to really earn that satisfaction, and not just saying, oh, look, a racist, let's just kill him. Like the person, like, the movie does a good job of making us really connect with the main characters and to see their point of view on things and why it's such a big deal that these specific racists get what's coming to them. Because racism was, well, I hesitate to say this. I'm not going to say this. I was going to make an overgeneralized statement about the differences of racism then and now, but I don't know enough about it to talk about that. I just like movies. I'm going to be introducing my new film review rubric. There are 7, I think, or maybe 6. There are 6 different aspects of a movie that I think should be considered when judging how good a movie is, and I think I'm actually going to make changes to it right now. So the only thing I just changed is I want the script, the writing of the film, to be weighted heavier than the rest of them. So all of these I'm going to be rating out of 5, except for the writing and the script, and that I'm going to rate out of 10. So that when I do the math at the end, script gets a little more weight to it, and that's the only thing I just changed. But the first thing I am going to talk about is actually going to be the cinematography and the technicalities, and that's basically everything visual on the screen. Django Unchained is very fun to watch, and yeah, a large part of that is the story, which I will talk about in a second here, but I just want to touch on the fantastic visually speaking. The cinematography is very tastefully done. There's some particularly, like, artful, maybe artful is putting a little too heavy a word on it, but like really interesting scenes, really good, tasteful visual storytelling in here. And there's a good amount of action, a lot of violence, and from what I could tell, and based on when this came out, like it was all practical effects. So all the explosions and the blood splatters are very satisfying and over the top and done practically, which is always nice. Like I am a proponent of practical effects over CGI, even though CGI has a place, but practical effects are better in my book whenever you can do them. And so it was really nice watching this happen. And so for cinematography and technicalities, this is an easy 5 for me. It fulfills what it needs to do very well, and visually it adds to the story. And like a movie wouldn't really work if it didn't look good and the story wasn't good. So like this one gets a 5 out of 5 for me. Script wise, excuse me, this is probably the one I'm going to talk the most about. I just want to talk about the dialogue. Fantastic dialogue. My philosophy on dialogue, I think most like writers, the philosophy on dialogue generally agreed on is that dialogue should not be wasted. Dialogue should always serve some sort of purpose, and the really well-written dialogue serves multiple purposes at once. It informs you about the characters, and it progresses the story, as like a minimum. And it's very well done. The story itself is well paced, which I think just tells you just how much stuff happens in this movie, because this movie does clock in at 2 hours and 45 minutes roughly, and that's a lot of time to be sitting and watching a movie. And so for me to say that it's paced very well for the most part is I think that's worth noting. I do say for the most part because the actual there's a couple time skips. I think there's like 1 or 2 big time skips in this film. Maybe one. There might just be one time skip in this film, and then like some like flashbacks and things like that. And the way that those are presented, although like for me at least, were not enough to like pull me out of the film or to confuse me. They do kind of break up the flow of things a little bit, and stylistically it was cool. And it's still like it wasn't a bad thing, but sometimes the passing of time between the time skip and such as that was a little bit clunky. But that's like my only critique. Overall, really well written script. There's very interesting like liberties, not liberties even, like what's the opposite of like a creative liberty? Like Quentin Tarantino really committed to the time period, to the realism. And the best way I can think of to make clear how committed he was to this is just how often the N-word is used in this. This movie is about race. Well, yeah, I think that's too blunt. I don't think I could say that it's about race. It's more about humanity and how people treat other people is really one of the themes that is in it. But a lot of the ways that people treat people in this movie are racially motivated, and that is a huge part of this film. So I don't want to like undersell that. The N-word is used a lot in this film, and most of the time it's said by white people. Which obviously nowadays that's not okay. We don't do that. We shouldn't do that. But the commitment to have it in the script this many times, and to hear like all of these white people who aren't even particularly bad people just like saying the words so casually, it really speed runs the realization for the audience that this world is very different. Like it's very like society has progressed quite a bit past this. Like things definitely felt more immersive, not necessarily in a good way, but in a way that felt very real and like important, like props to all the actors and everyone for like, such fantastic performances, which I'll touch on in a few minutes here. But the society back then and its perspective on black people, on African Americans, there's a lot of just watching the film you'll see a lot of different ways in how it not great, but particularly in how casually the N-word is used, is very very eye-opening. Watching white people say the word so casually, it really just it really makes you think about like how different things were back then and how kind of backwards their view on race was. And they don't always mean it. Again, like not all the white people saying it necessarily mean it as a bad thing. They don't always mean it in like a particularly derogatory way. That's just how society uses the word back then, and it's awful. It's horrible, but it's simply like how people were back then. It's just the society they were in, and obviously like you're a product of your environment, and that's your society. And it's horrible, but I'm glad that it's included, because I think it serves its purpose really well. Something else I found really interesting about like the dialogue at times, there are a couple like particularly comedic scenes that I think are very well placed in here, or maybe not even well placed. It's like they're so jarringly different from the tone of the rest of the movie that it feels intentional, and it feels like it's like, I don't know, it adds a nice moment of air of levity. But there's the comedic sequences and dialogue that happen like from these like strangely charismatic like plantation owners who are like they're slave owners. They own slaves. And they're not good people, and they do, spoiler alert, get what's coming to them. But like they're performed so well, you can't help but begrudgingly like them. Like I think like Leonardo DiCaprio, his character, Calvin Candy, like, good example. He's like, you can't help but like his charm, even though he's a racist. Like, and not just like a closet race. Like, he is a representation of just how far racism can go when society allows that to be okay. Ugh. And the horrifying thing about that, well, first off, it makes the movie a lot more entertaining to watch. The performances of everybody, especially when things are lighter and more funny, like makes it more interesting to watch. But it also really cements in that these are still humans, like human beings, like white, black, race is irrelevant. They're all human beings, and that's what makes it more horrifying. Is it's like somebody who's just as capable of having a family and loving his wife and being a good father could also just as easily, put on a hood and go try to like kill two people like from a racially motivated place. And it's like that's what humans are capable of. And there's something very horrifying about that I think was very intentional, because there's this particular scene towards the middle about basically a bunch of KKK, and they're gonna go kill. Their plan is to go kill Django and Dr. Schultz, the German dentist slash bounty hunter, and there's like this 5-minute scene where they're all basically talking about how they can't see shit through their masks because the eye holes were cut so like incorrectly, and the guy whose wife like spends the whole day putting a bunch of bags together and doing that, it's like he gets all offended and like defends his wife, and then he ends up leaving, and it's really funny, but it's also like these are a bunch of like these guys are gonna go kill two people like because of race. And it's like, and it's this weird in between that makes you feel so conflicted, because it's like on the one hand, like I shouldn't find this funny, I shouldn't find these people at to any level relatable or interesting to watch, or like I should just be horrified by the people they are, but there are begrudgingly human people doing these things, and I appreciate the touch that is put to that. No one's immune to doing evil things. No one is incapable of evil. Like, I believe that as humans, we are inherently evil. At the very least, I believe we're not inherently good. And this kind of hammers that in, for me at least. And I found that very interesting. What else do I got here? Another interesting thing, character towards the the second half of the movie, there's this character named Steven. And Steven is a black man living in Calvin Candy's Calvin Candy's kind of like the final plantation owner, sort of. I guess he's kind of the antagonist of the film, but there's not really one specific antagonist to this film. But basically, you have a black man who's like a servant of the Candy household, and he's very comfortable. It's interesting. He comes out the first time we meet him. He comes out and he's so comfortable with Mr. Candy. Now there's still like a clear like divide between the two. There's still a clear like Mr. Candy's the boss and Steven is still like Steven still works for him. Steven is his property. But there's this sort of like casual banter between them. This sort of comfort there. And Jamie Foxx, like Django, he's on a horse when in this scene, and this is something that's like brought attention to at the beginning of the film, is that black people don't ride horses, like it's illegal in certain parts of the South, and it's just flat out like people have never seen that before, and it's like people can't even wrap their head around the idea of a black man riding a horse. And then what's interesting is this other guy who is a black man, Steven, he comes out and he sees Django on the horse and he freaks out. He's offended. He's like appalled that this black man is going to come into his house and is going to stay with them like a white man almost. And it's fascinating. It's a fascinating character. Played by Nick Fury. Who plays Nick Fury? I don't know. You know who I'm talking about. And so Steven is a fascinating character in that regard, because as you watch the film, it becomes kind of like I have some ideas on like what makes this character tick, because for some reason this character in particular really interested me, because as you see, he's like the head honcho of like the black servants and staff in the house. He's almost like a prized pet. He's almost like I can't think of a better way to put this. He's almost like a trick monkey. And I really hope no one takes that like in like a racist way. You know what I mean? It's like the white people don't take him seriously. They don't really like, and they kind of just like, I don't know, they treat him like a pet. They don't treat him like a human being, that's for sure. But he also doesn't seem particularly bothered by that. Like he's gotten used to it. And you can see that as like the film goes on, because he ends up being like part of the reason why like the third act goes so wrong, is because like he doesn't feel any particular loyalty to his own race. He doesn't feel any sort of any loyalty or particular need to do the right thing or to do something that's morally right. His only loyalty is to Mr. Candy, because that's how he's gotten comfortable in life. And you can see in the way that he kind of lords over the other servants of the house, that he relishes his place in the Candy household. And at the heart of it all, like the movie, what I love about them including a character like this is that it really makes clear that the movie's not trying to say that it's purely about white people being evil and black people being victims. That's not the heart of what this is. The heart of this, like racism is a symptom. Racism is like a sub disease. The actual disease that this movie is touching on, of the human condition, is the desire to exert power over other people, the willingness to dehumanize somebody else because they are different from you, and the willingness to give up parts of yourself and to cross lines you wouldn't normally cross in order to maintain your own comfort, and from a purely like survival of the fittest standpoint. And it's interesting because on the other hand, like one of the main characters, Dr. Schultz, is a white man. Now, granted, he's German, he's not American, but like he's white, not white, but he's pale skin. He's European, and so in the same way that Schultz is a clear example of a good white man, Steven is a clear example of a bad black man, and I'm doing these in quotes because it's not that simple. Which is, I just love that about this film, is no character is just like black and white. I can't tell if that's clever or not, what I just did there. Because, like, touching on Schultz for a second, Dr. Schultz, he is a good man, and he has a conscience, but he is a bounty hunter. He harps on this quite a bit. It's his job to kill people. Like, whether or not they deserve it, he's still killing people, and he makes his living off of doing it. He makes money off of killing people. At the heart of it, that's what he's doing. Even bad people who did things a long time ago, and now they, like, have families and shit. Like, he kills them. That's what he does. And but you can see that he becomes more conflicted as the movie goes on, specifically about the way that the African Americans are treated. And I'm not saying it becomes like a race thing for him at any point. I think, like, because Django, he admits, is the first black person, the first slave, I won't even say black, but just like the first slave that he's ever freed. And so he feels partially responsible for him. And you can see, like, as this goes on, that responsibility starts to, like, that feeling of I need to do something about this. I need to, like, I can't just, like, stand by and pretend this isn't happening anymore, starts to build. And that leads to the climax of the film where he ends, I'm going to spoil this, where he ends up shooting Calvin Candy, and he gets shot down by Candy's men. And simply because he didn't want to shake Candy's hand, he didn't want to give him the respect of being like he didn't want to show Candy any more respect than he could get away with, and so he'd rather kill him and suffer the consequences of that than shake his hand. And we could debate about whether or not that was the smart thing to do at that point, but the point is that for him as his character, it made sense for him to do that, and I think it's built up pretty well. And then, so yeah, back to Steven. Steven, again, in quotes, is a bad man. Quotes, right? Because it's not that he's inherently evil. It's not that he is evil and he looks down on black people because he's a bad person. It's like, it's not even that. It's that he's simply grown comfortable with his position in the house. During that time, there were significantly worse ways that a black person could be treated. And when you watch the movie, you see he's pretty comfortable. He's living a pretty cushy life. And so he's motivated by a desire to keep that position. And because of that, and his whole life, I'm assuming, living in that household, he becomes apathetic to the plights of the other black people around him, of the other wrongly treated. And so it's more of a matter of selfishness and pride than it is of maliciousness. It's not that he, like, looks down on anybody or I'll get on that in a second here, but it's that it's simply he's just looking out for himself, and he does whatever he needs to look out for himself, and he takes a sort of twisted pride in this unique sort of place that he has, because he's convinced himself that he's in the best possible place that a black person at this time could possibly be at. And which is why he finds Django so abhorrent, is because Django represents the idea that a black man can be free and can be dignified as much as, if not more than, a white man, not because he's black and because he's white, but just because, like, based on the person. Because, like, just like there's a dignified black man, there are plenty of undignified white men in here. And again, it's not a race thing. I want to make it clear, I'm not making any race statements in this movie. This movie's just race statements about, in this video, I'm not making any race statements. This movie is just, that's a very important theme within this movie, so I touch on it as is necessary in order to properly articulate what it's trying to say and my thoughts on it. I hope that goes without saying, but I feel a need to say it regardless. Yeah, it's a matter of taking care of himself, basically. And that's why he abhors Django. That's why he finds Django so like, it's just like, it's an insult to him. There's a black man who has gotten a life better than me, and he didn't have to, like, strip away any of his dignity in order to do it. He didn't have to give up any part of himself, or play any sort of part or cater to the egos of the white men. He, like, Django just is, and he's riding a horse, and he seems just as dignified as any white man of that time, and that is something that just Steven hates. Steven cannot stand that idea, that he has had to break himself inside in order to receive this life, and Django has not had to do that. Which is, I believe, is part of the motivation for what makes him so suspicious of Django, which then leads to his actions later on throughout the film. But there's also a great touch at the final scene. There are no words used to address this, but throughout the movie up to this point, Steven walks with a cane. He walks with a limp. It's like he has like a gimp leg, and he's just been walking with the cane the entire time. But then at the very end, after Django has killed all of the white people in the Calvin Candy household, and it's just him and Steven, Steven drops the cane, and we see that he can walk. Steven, which just goes to show even further the extent he was willing to go to make himself look smaller and like less of a threat in order to receive the favor of the Candy household. To make himself seem like more of the submissive, or at least non-threatening black man that the white people were expecting him to be. He intentionally sucks up to his masters and demeans himself in order to get away with more, and he takes pride in that. A little before that, when Django's like hanging upside down, Django's just been caught. He's hanging upside down. He's about to be castrated, but then at the last second, Steven comes in, and he stops it before that can happen. And so he's the one who breaks the news to Django that he's about to be sent to a mining company, where basically he's going to mine resources with a hammer for the rest of his life until he dies. And then they're going to throw him in a hole, his dead body into the hole, and that's going to be the end of his story. And Steven is very like, and the way he talks about it is basically, when he basically tells Django, everyone was trying to figure out what to do with you, right? Like, because this is after Calvin Candy has died, and Django just killed a bunch of people before he had to give himself up in order to protect his wife. And everyone was trying to figure out what to do with you, but no one, and he basically says, like, white people are so uncreative, and they're like, man, they just, like, they were trying to think of, and just like all these ways to punish you or to kill you and to make you suffer. And so basically he pipes in with this sort of like, man, people down at the mining company get treated worse than that. And so like he keeps like saying this over and over until all of a sudden one of the people, like one of the white people, suddenly has it. Oh wait, we should send him to the mining company. And there's this sort of, and we can see even more just like this sort of, he does look down on the white people to an extent. He does resent them to an extent. Maybe not like as nearly as much of an extent as anyone in a worse position, but certainly he doesn't like think that they're like particularly creative or like can think for themselves. And so he relishes in his ability to sort of plant ideas in their minds when it suits him. And they don't even realize that this is happening because he's made himself seem so much like less than what he is. But then when he drops the cane, again, it makes it clear like he's dropping the facade. You know, he speaks, like the way he talks changes. He doesn't say too much. Before, he dies. But from the way he talks, to me, it seemed pretty clear, like, he changed so much about himself in order to get to the position he was. And as Django points out, he overlooked the deaths and the suffering of so many African Americans in order to keep his position. And that's what makes him a bad person. Despite the fact that this is a race movie. Not a race movie. It's not a race movie. But that this is a movie with themes of race where generally speaking, the white person is the one in the wrong. Like the white American society at this time is very clearly in the wrong, and there's no way to defend them. But that doesn't mean that it's only them. Like that doesn't like the movie is again making it clear that evil is not something that is purely a white American thing. Everyone is capable of evil when given the opportunity and the motivation to do so, which is very sobering. And I appreciate the nuance that is put into this script in order to include a character like that. Played very well by. I can't remember his name. There's also this random character, and a part of me is kind of worried that I, like, because this character's not in the movie very long, so a part of me is kind of worried that I'm, like, misremembering this character, and maybe it was two different characters, and I'm, like, mildly racist, or at least unacquainted with the nuances of African American facial structures. Because just to be clear, and I guess this is sort of a race statement, if you see two black people and you think they look the same, I don't think that necessarily makes you racist. I think that just means you haven't been around enough black people. And that can be an entirely different thing. And unfortunately for me, I have not had the pleasure of being around very many ethnicities. I grew up in a very white place. Probably the most ethnic person I knew was like my mother, because she's Chinese. But even then, sometimes I get Chinese and Asian people. What am I saying? All races are equal. I'm not racist, but you know, no one's gonna watch this. I'll probably just cut that. Nah, let's keep it. I don't fucking care. I'm getting really distracted. Oh yeah, but basically, there's a random slave, and so Django during the big part at the end, it's like a third of the movie is at Calvin Candy's plantation. Basically, Django is playing the role of a black slave owner. He's playing the role of an African American who's gained his freedom, or maybe inherited his freedom from his father, and has used his wealth and his freedom in order to own more slaves, which is almost worse. Like if slavery in general wasn't so awful to begin with, that would be worse. And he abhors the role he plays, but he commits to it fully. And so you can see there's this one specific slave that like kind of gives him a little lip, not really even lip, just clearly hates him, and Django kind of like gives him a hard time. And you can see that he hates him, and then as like later on in the film, basically he watches Django kill a bunch of white men who are about to go sell them all off to bring them to the mining company. And Django like escapes, and you can see that man like he doesn't say a word in that final scene, but you can see that he respects Django a lot more. He's like, and you could almost infer that he's inspired, which is really interesting because like that guy's barely a character in the movie. He's basically a background character, but I don't know. I appreciated that extra detail, and there's probably room for a good amount of interpretation there, but I couldn't quite piece together exactly what Quentin Tarantino was getting at there, if that meant something more specific than that. But I still found it to be an interesting detail, and I loved that it was included. And just to kind of harp on this one last time, I just wrote this, the best and often scariest villains are usually the most charming. Leonardo DiCaprio as Calvin Candy, just fantastic job. And as you can probably tell, my vocabulary is pretty limited. Anytime something is good, or I think something is great, I'm going to use the words good or great or fantastic or phenomenal, and those are about the only words that I know. But you get the idea. He does a very good job being this rich, seemingly like just completely unaware of what he's doing is wrong. He just doesn't think of what he's doing is wrong, even though he's in the business of literally pitting African American men, slaves, against each other to the death. He buys them, he has them like trained, and I don't think he even trains them. I think he just buys them, and then he just like sets them against other people playing this game, and they just fight. And like it's brutal and it's awful, and but then at the same time, like at the very beginning when you first meet him, he's watching a fight happen, like just in his living room, and the guy freaking like his fighter basically like blinds the other one, like gouges his eyes out with his thumb, with his thumbs, and like it's an awful, gruesome thing. And then he basically makes him kill him with the hammer, which is awful because obviously, like, you know, the guy doesn't actually want to do that, but he doesn't have a choice, and so he does that. And then, you know, and then the next breath he's like, "Good job, very well done. I'm gonna go like send you off to your room, and and he basically treats him super well. And it's like, what the fuck is happening here? And it's like, it's awful. It's terrible. And later on, we see him like sick some dogs on a fighter of his who fought like 3 fights and just like doesn't want to do it anymore. Understandably so. He doesn't want to kill anymore for entertainment because that's awful. And Calvin Candy, oh my God, he's so civil and like he seems so understanding and almost compassionate, and then he freaking sicks like these dogs on him and has the guy basically eaten alive by dogs, and it's awful. And he's a very well portrayed character because on the one hand you really love the performance and you love watching him on screen, but oh my fucking God, you cannot deny that he is a terrible person. Very well done, which just kind of brings me to the performances. Well done all around. I hated, loved, and this is just what I wrote. I hated, loved, and was conflicted about all of the right people. When the movie wants you to hate someone, they do it well. It doesn't feel like they're taking the easy way to making you hate them. They still feel like people, but you do not like the people that you're not supposed to like. The people you do like, the movie takes its time properly building up those characters. And the people that you're conflicted about, you're not sure how to feel about, or you know how you should feel about them, but you can't get yourself to quite feel that way. Those people were written well, and all of them performed phenomenally. Very well done to everybody. And I do mean like everybody. Like, just mwah, so good. And so yeah, and then a bit of a talk about the score. Oh shoot, what was the script? I'm going to be rating out of 10, and that's a 9.5 out of 10 for me. I only removed that 0.5 because of like mainly because of the slight, not pacing issues, but just like the kind of weird time jumps and the every once in a while kind of like weird cutaways that happen for like flashback reasons that were a little bit confusing. I think I said before I wasn't confused. I was a little confused. But it was not nearly enough in the grand scheme of how well this script was written for me to bring it any lower than a 9.5. And even then, I think I might be kind of nitpicking a little bit. But in the name of fairness, I will not give it a 10. See, and then the performances are a 5. The performances are a 5 out of 5. And so then talking about the score and the sound design as my fourth criteria for rating a movie. And for score and sound design, this one gets a 4.5 out of 5. Score was very unique, very well done. At times you end up with very emotional, very big swelling orchestras, and other times you end up with like almost like hip-hop like beats, and maybe they are like that. I hated the way I said hip-hop there, but you know, like something that seemed more like club modern techno almost. Not, it wasn't quite techno. I don't know, it was just weird in between places, and I don't know enough about like different music genres to properly explain it. But it's very unique, very eclectic blend of music, which I really enjoyed. It really did work to heighten the experience. It was used well. Yeah, like there's a like, you end up with like at the very beginning of the song, there's like a ballad that I think was written specifically for this film. I think I didn't look it up, but it seemed like something that was written specifically for this film, and it's just like, you know, sung in the background. It's like a ballad, and then like later on you have like a woman, like this is diegetically, like for Elise played on a harp, and like it's diegetic, which means like it's in the film, like it takes place in the world. Someone is literally playing the harp, but it is also like, you know, aiding the tone of the scene. Like, and it's very well done. I'm gonna keep saying very well done. That's probably the main way I could probably explain anything of this movie. But I'm trying to be more specific than that. Love the soundtrack, but yeah, a few of the songs felt a little out of place for me, and this is where I was kind of conflicted. There's one specific song. It's that kind of like club bop beat that happens, and like it seems almost like a, I don't know, it fits the vibe at the same time as it just didn't fit the vibe, and I just didn't know how to think about it. It pulled me out just the tiniest bit. And I was just like, I'm not sure how to feel about this. I don't hate it. I'm not sure if I love it. And that's probably the reason why I gave the score / sound design like a 4.5 instead of a 5. I didn't have any notes on the sound design in particular. I think like some productions, the sound design is like so noticeably good that I have to talk about it, which is why I include it here. But in this case, the sound design, all I can think of is like it's punchy. It's very well done in that regard. But it's one could say that it's so well done that I didn't even notice it, and I could just focus on the story. Because really, you don't want people to notice when, like most of the time, you don't want people to notice when your sound design is super good because, you know, if they're paying attention to your sound design, they're not paying attention to the story, and that's not what you want as a sound designer. But yeah, it was done cleanly, and I'm not going to talk too much more about that. The fifth criteria is that of style points. This is a Tarantino-style film. Lots of fights, a lot of good action. Things I noticed, like there's well-placed comedy. I already talked about this in like the script. Tasteful use of slow-mo or zoom-ins was something pretty that I noted. Like, we've seen what happens when you overdo a slow-mo, when you do it just because it looks cool. But I think Tarantino, I'm not going to name names of directors who don't do it well. I think we all know who I'm talking about. But, like, tasteful use of, like, slow-mos, Tarantino knows how to do that. He knows when to use a slow-mo for emotional impact, to heighten action. He knows when to do it. It's not overused by any means or any stretch of the imagination in this film. It's very well done. A particular type of like shot that I've been always kind of not a huge fan of, but I think was done pretty well in this film, is the zoom in. Or even like the zoom out. I just don't think you should zoom in a shot if you can help it. I think like the dolly shot is all like where you actually move the camera towards them is always so much better than changing the lens in order to like just like zoom in on a smaller part of the picture. And there are a couple like shots where that happens. It's almost comedic. And I say it's well done, but I still am not completely sure that I loved them. I'm not going to dock anything too crazy because of that, because it's pretty small and most of the shots are not like those. Because again, it's done very tastefully. It's done very intentionally. But for style, I'm going to give this a 4.2 out of 5. It didn't feel good giving it a 4. I didn't think it deserved like a 4.5 or higher or anything like that because like... And maybe that boils down to personal taste. So I give it a 4.2 out of 5 in terms of style. Just in terms of like unique flavor, I guess, that this movie presents. But yeah, and then in terms of personal preference, though, and this is just my own personal taste, did I like this movie? Yes, I did like this movie. This movie easily gets a 5 out of 5 from me. The movie, just to kind of put in perspective, the movie is about 2 hours and 45 minutes. I already touched on that. The movie, there was a point about an hour in where or maybe like hour 20 in, where I paused the movie and I looked at the time and I was like, wait, it's only been an hour and 20 minutes? Holy crap, that's awesome. I get to watch another hour and a half of this movie. And that was pretty great. And I thought that was pretty awesome. So overall, a fantastic movie, and I got to redo my math now, so just give me a second. Okay. Originally, I wasn't going to do this part like in the video. I was just going to do it off screen, or like I'd already done it. But since I've changed my equation slightly, I'm going to do the math here in front of you. Let's see. So, okay. So in terms of cinematography and the technical aspects of the film, that's a 5 plus the 9.5 out of 10 for the script, plus the plus 5 for performances, plus 4.5 for the score, plus 4.2 for style points, and then plus 5 for my own personal preference. And that's 33.2. And then I'm going to, this isn't convoluted, it makes perfect sense. I'm going to divide it by 7 because there are, I'm going to divide it by 7 because there are 6, there are 6 categories that I'm rating on. But then I add another category to make up for the fact that script has double the amount of points that everyone else has. And then I end up with a 4.7, and then because I want to do it at a 10, I just multiply it by 2. And so the final score for this film is 9.48, and I round it up to a 5. So it's still the same. And so we end up with a 9.5 out of 10, which is what I already had here, actually, which is Interesting. Did this actually make any difference? I'm going to pretend it didn't. But yeah, very well done. Very good movie. Would absolutely recommend. If you have not watched Django Unchained, and you should watch it. First off, if you haven't watched Django Unchained, why the fuck did you watch this video? But second off, not that I'm complaining. Thank you for watching this video, but you should watch Django Unchained. I think I've made enough points to prove that this movie is very well made and deserves to be watched. But I know it's already like it's a pretty popular movie. I know a lot of people have watched it, so I'm not like saying anything unique or like unconventional here. But if you haven't watched it and you have watched this video, I still say you should watch it. There's a lot, like me talking about this movie is nothing compared to just watching and experiencing all of this for yourself. That's what I say. And I say that's still worth it, even if I've just told you in bits and pieces roughly what happens throughout the entire film. Like for me, spoilers have never been like a huge problem for me. I do enjoy not having spoilers for me, but I believe that if a movie is done well, if a movie is presents itself properly, and has been created to be good, then no amount of somebody telling me what happens is ever going to beat me watching it happen, even if I already knew it was going to happen. You know, if it's done well, that's what I believe. And obviously that happens to various extents depending on the movie and like the type of the movie and like what exactly the spoiler is. But for the most part, like spoilers are never going to completely ruin a movie for me. But that's just me. So, you know, do whatever feels like a good use of your time. And so, yeah, that's it. That's all I have to talk about. This is my Django Unchained video. I guess I'll just keep calling it that. But yeah, let me know what you think of the movie. Let me know if I missed something or if there was like something I said that you don't agree with or you don't understand or that just like you never thought of. I don't know, whatever it is you want to talk about. Tell me what your favorite color is. Tell me your favorite month of the year. Tell me where you like to go for dinner. I don't know. But yeah, tell me just about yourself. I don't fucking care. Just like this video if you liked it. If I gave you any insights. If I don't know, if you just liked the movie and you liked hearing me talk about it. Yeah, I know this movie's not the. Sorry, I know this video. I keep mixing up video and movie. But yeah, I know like my video setup isn't the most like engaging. I don't think I have time to do a crazy amount of editing on this video. I might just like drop this in as is and not even watch the playback, which is risky because I don't know if I said something particularly stupid. But I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got for you today now. Go away now. Sorry, Critical Drinker reference. That's not even a reference. That was just me blatantly stealing his outro. But yeah. Let me know if you have any movie suggestions. That's the other thing. Let me know if you have any movie suggestions, any shows you want me to watch, to review, to talk about. I don't know, just movie ideas, movie video ideas, just video ideas in general. Always great. Always appreciate that. So, yeah. Bye. How do I go turn off the thing? Oh, also, tell me if you know what that actor's name is. I still have no idea. I don't know why I can't think of his name.